Hello there and welcome to a special video where I'm going to talk about something I've got planned for 2023 that is related to the channel. So obviously you're used to seeing my end of year videos, and I don't think so far I've done like a year in summary video, and I did think about doing something like that this year at the end of 2022, but those can be quite difficult to edit together. It would mean going through a lot of my online content and spending inordinate amount of hours editing down clips. So I figured not really a good usage of my time to do that for what is essentially just a summary of the stuff I've done over the previous year. What I thought it'd be more interesting to do is talk about a project I've got planned for 2023, and this is not necessarily something I knew I'm doing for this year, but what I think is that it's probably the first time I've specifically mentioned my yearly projects that I do. So let's use last year, let's use 2022 as an example. So in 2022, I spent the whole year working my way through this philosophy book, this DK philosophy book. And I have mentioned that in passing, but I don't know if I've necessarily done anything over consecutive videos. So I was thinking about what was I going to do in 2023, and most of this stuff just bubbles away in the background, maybe features in videos in passing, but there's no real series. And what happened was, as I was going through and trying to decide what I wanted to do for 2023, is what I sometimes refer to as my ambient project. So what I tend to do is I'll work through something. What happened with, in the case of the DK philosophy book, is I had this little journal and I sort of summarized every section, every philosopher. And that actually carried on, well, actually more than a year. I'd been working on it in the previous year. So I had lots of ideas bouncing around in my head in terms of, what did I want to do for 2023? And lots of different things came up, some of which were ideas that I, were revisiting stuff I'd done in the past. So I'm going to bring on various artifacts on camera now just to illustrate this. So one thing that crossed my mind is I thought, well, maybe I could get back into opening a magic product of some description. But then I thought, well, I've got plenty of stuff on the channel already, of stuff I've opened. I was trying to move away from opening stuff on the channel. Plus, through 2023, I still plan on having 3 Magic the Gathering videos a week, of which some will actually be revisiting old product anyway. So it was a bit of a non-starter in that respect. So decided not to go with that. Something else I thought about doing was spending a year looking at the syntax of language. And again, what I'm talking about here in this case is, it's going to be a project I'm doing in the background, so it wouldn't necessarily turn up in any of my videos and might get, say, mentioned in passing in a Seeds of Flourishing video. So I thought about using this book, which is The Structure of Magic. So it's a book about language and therapy by Richard Bandler and John Grinder, who are the creators of, or the, I don't know how best to word it, not for the inventors, if you like, or the creators of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I got involved with neuro-linguistic programming, I think, in the 90s, when we used certain aspects of it for accelerated learning. I was doing work for a management consultancy, and they were very interested in how they could integrate accelerated learning into some of the training packages we were doing by taking a look at the language we were using and the content, things like that. So I've got Structure Magic 1 and 2 as a consequence of being involved with that, which I spent several days over the years poring through this, trying to get my head around it. And I thought it might be interesting to spend a year just thinking about syntax as it's used every day, as it turns up in philosophy, that sort of thing. And at this point, I wasn't necessarily thinking of turning this into anything that would feature on the channel. Another idea I had for stuff to work on 23 is revisiting the In Our Time series, and I'd done this before where, again, not something I'd featured on the channel, but I'd spent a year listening to In Our Time episodes, one episode a week of every time it came out weekly, and then reading around the subject, and that was pretty interesting. But that was way before some of the I'd switched over to doing almost like a video a day. I'm talking about, this probably happened, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago when I did that. This book I've got here is a recent acquisition of, I think, last year or so. But I just wanted to have something on camera, something nice to look at. So that was another possibility. The other thing I did strongly consider is spending a year learning programming languages. And I had started, I think I attempted this in 2020, sometime around there, maybe a little bit earlier than that, maybe 2019. I started off with Clojure, and I went through about 3 languages, but couldn't really keep it up. I was doing like a programming language a month. Another thing I thought about doing is sort of revisiting like historical languages, stuff that I'd taken a look at years ago, so things like assembly language, or doing some sort of comparative languages project for the year. And again, at this point, it wasn't something that I'd necessarily thought, I should feature this on the channel. It's just this ambient project I always do every year, and it bubbles away in the background week in, week out. There was lots of thought given to, maybe doing this with programming. So I'd recently bought this book to add to my sort of historical programming languages collection, which was Snowball 4. So it was definitely, it's close to becoming front and center. But the problem I have with programming languages, as has often happened in the past, is I normally keep it up for about 2 to 3 months and then get a little bit bored and go off and do something else, or I just end up going back to just programming stuff in Python to solve problems. And so I find it difficult to maintain that. So I thought the same might happen again with that. And then yesterday, I had a little bit of an epiphany, and this is what I'm planning on doing for the year. So I've been binge listening old episodes of the Adam Buxton podcast, and on there's a couple of episodes with Brian Eno, and it's interesting because I find Brian Eno fascinating, but he's not somebody that I've really gone into any depth about. I'm obviously aware of his work on during the Berlin trilogy, so with David Bowie, on Low, on Heroes, and on the Lodger as well, and also his ambient work as well, music for airports, those sort of things, and various collaborations he's done over the years. But I hadn't really explored his complete landscape, if you like, and I thought that might be a worthwhile thing to do for 2023. So between yesterday and this morning, I went onto Amazon and realised that bash the camera there. He released a book quite a number of years ago, because in 2020, around 2020, this was released, which is the 25th anniversary. So this book, let me just zoom in here on my Kindle, is a diary he kept for 1995. And it's basically, I think it was a A5 diary, and each page was an entry for each day of the year. And Brian Eno had attempted to do that on previous years, not necessarily keep a diary for it, just keep a diary generally, and hadn't lasted very long. But this actually he managed to make last the year. The book's called, or the diaries are called, A Year with Swollen Appendices, and I'll find out whether in it he did actually have appendicitis, or whether it's a reference to the appendices at the end of the book. In its original form, this came out in quite a nice hardback. The 21st anniversary edition came out in hardback. As you can see, there's a Kindle edition. I understand that, funnily enough, this year in 2023, they're going to release a paperback version of this. So, yeah, all of these things conspired, and I thought, well, maybe this is some sort of indicator, something I should follow, a white rabbit that I should pursue. So what happened was, this morning I went up to the local Dollarama. Oh, actually, one thing I forgot to say, one thing I was thinking of doing as well, and this will probably go on in the background but won't be documented, and it fits in nicely with the Brian Eno thing, was just doing a year of music generally. So I have one of these nice things. I bought it about a year or so ago, with money I was given for a 10-year anniversary at a firm I was working for. And I keep meaning to have a real good play around with this. I sort of got it and then put it to one side as other projects came about. But it could fit in quite nicely, I think, with the whole going down the Brian Eno rabbit hole. So we'll see where that takes me as well. Anyway, back to this morning. So I go down to Dollarama. It's actually quite nice, a little bit of snow this morning, and just bought a few things. Whenever I start a new project, I'll explain what the halogen's there for in a moment. I always like to buy a notebook, or here are two, because I figure I'm gonna, for what I'm planning on doing, I'm gonna need a couple of these. And my favourite cheap felt tip pens, which are these Sharpies, the ones that don't bleed through paper, because this paper is often quite cheap and will bleed quite easily sometimes. So my plan was to work through the Brian Eno book, a page a day, starting on the 1st of January, and look at the sort of things he was putting in there and use them as inspiration for the day. So maybe if he mentions a film, see if I can try and watch that, or if he mentions a book, maybe read a review of the book or read some notes on the book. And in here, for each day, I was just going to write a summary of the things he was putting in his diary for that day, alongside all the things that it inspires me to do on that day or think about. Also, alongside that, I'm going to be listening to his back catalogue. Obviously, it won't line up with 1995, although I will be checking out anything that was released in 95. But yeah, I'm going to go through and have a listen to his back catalogue. Also, so I'll probably be consulting this book, which I think I've spoken about before. This is this Ambient Century book. And in addition to obviously going online, I'll probably be consulting this book, which I haven't got around to reading yet, which is a book specifically about David Byrne in Berlin, but I'm assuming it's going to be mentioning a lot about Brian Eno in there, because of his heavy involvement there, and alongside obviously Iggy. And then also, what's nice is, so 1995 was a sort of bumper year for me in as much as 95 was when I started my postgrad joint diploma in computer manufacturing, which I was doing alongside a firm I was working for. And 95 was a really flourishing year for me in terms of not only it was a firm that I really enjoyed working for. I was doing lots of interesting work there, working on a helpline, and also involved in lots of projects as a sort of spin-off from me doing my postgrad when the firm sort of realised that's what I was doing. And it was something that I paid for myself and did under my own sort of volition. I'm just opening this because I want to talk a little bit about music as well. We're on the subject. So something that I pursued through my own volition, but it married up nicely with some stuff they were working on, and they'd asked me, do you want to try out some of these things you've learned on various projects? And also the people I were working with were super nice. My boss was really good. Yeah, it was a great time. But also there was a lot going on, interestingly, musically in 95. If we look at 1001 albums, you can sort of see the stuff that was coming out. So I figured alongside my notes to do specifically with Brian Eno, I could also make some notes about albums that were coming out on certain days, or if I have a sort of memory around that time. But yeah, a very interesting year in terms of the sort of music that I was listening to, the sort of music that was being played on the stereo that they had on. So that's going to be, something I'm really looking forward to. So I thought I'd share this. But why is it important beyond that for the channel? Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to document this on the channel. And what I'm going to do is every, I think either Saturday evening or Monday morning, Saturday evening or Sunday morning, I'm going to release a video. It's going to be this sort of setup. Hopefully I won't keep bashing the camera like I have been. I do apologise for that. Where I'm going to flick through my notebook for the week and just talk a little bit about what I did end up exploring, the sort of things that turned up in Brian Eno's diary for 95, and any other sort of associated things that I think about that are sort of connected with that in some way. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting project. I'm looking forward to it. It's not going to impact, as far as I can see, on my other videos. I'll just put it out as an additional video. And one of the reasons for that is it takes up a space that would normally be occupied by me doing another year of something. So this year, instead of me doing a year of philosophy or a year of music or a year of programming, it's going to be a year of Brian Eno, and that's what the episodes are going to be called. And I'll just put out one a week, and they'll be numbered by the that week's week number. So watch out for episode number 1. I'm going to call this episode 0, this particular one, but episode 1 I'm hoping to drop this weekend, and we'll see how that goes. So yeah, hopefully I'll persist with this. The plan is the halogen light bulb is because I do recognise that I'm going to have to improve the lighting a little bit here. I've noticed, particularly when I'm doing the stack of Magic the Gathering decks, which is something I do want to do more of, I get an annoying shadow which I need to get rid of. So I'm going to have some light coming in from this side as well. I do have a light I could currently use, but the bulb in it is not appropriate. It's quite yellow. So I was looking at something that's a bit more bright, which is what comes in from the bit whiter light that comes in from the other side on the left side. The other thing that will be interesting, which will be cool, is 1995. For those of you that watch the channel from my Magic the Gathering contact, was an interesting period in Magic the Gathering. So I'm probably gonna weave some of that in as well, just made mainly in passing. The other thing you might also notice happens is, although I won't necessarily be dropping certain video releases, obviously certain series will get affected or embellished by this year of Brian Eno. So I think I'll stop it there. I think I've spoken about everything that I wanted to speak out about. I was so excited about this project, I just wanted to share it now. I know I do this with a lot of videos. This is this is completely unscripted. I haven't got any notes at all, so I do apologise if it's even more ad hoc than usual, even more improvised than usual. But I was so excited this morning when I finally decided on my 2023 project for the year, and the fact that I was going to be able to put a sort of call to action video out there to go alongside with it, which I hadn't done on previous years. I just had to share. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now. Have a fantastic 2023, and I will catch you in my next video.